Bruce. You ready? All right. Good evening. I'm going to call the workshop of the Rockport Select Board on Tuesday, October 30th, 2018 to order. This workshop tonight is a bit different than anything that I think has ever been done because we've invited business owners from Rockport and surrounding areas here to meet with the Select Board and just kind of get to know each other a little bit better. As we get started, I want to introduce Scott Bickford, our Code Enforcement Officer. Raise your hand there, Scott. And Bill Napower, who's our planning consultant who works for the Mid-Coast Economic Development Corporation. So they'll be here to help answer any questions that members of the Select Board cannot. Don't really have a set agenda here tonight.
You don't like that?
No, I don't like that.
Oh, okay.
And it's really going to be more of a give and take session. At some point during the meeting tonight, I know Deborah wants to say a few things about an effort to look at broadband in the community, and I'll say a few words about the RES site, but we can do that when the conversation lags. Let's see here. I guess a couple of things. In preparing for tonight's meeting, one of the first things I did was get out the business section of the Town of Rockport's 2004 Comprehensive Plan. And I picked it up here, and I looked at it here, and kind of we got to this really the first page, and the first line on the first page here says, some business owners perceive Rockport is as unfriendly to business. That sort of, that caught my attention. So I thought, well, maybe we do have some work to do. Having said that, let's see. I think we can go ahead, and Mark has agreed to kind of work the room. So if you have a question for the Select Board, you can either come up and speak at the microphone, or you can use the portable microphone. We do that because this is live streamed, which means that people at home can watch on their computers. The last thing I want to say is that I also in 2004, it was determined that about 20% of the town of Rockport's valuation was commercial and business. I asked Rick to track that number down, and he forgot. So I wonder, 14 years later, what percentage of our evaluation is now business and commercial. We'll track that down. I just think it'd be interesting to see how it compares to that initial 20%. So, does anybody in the audience at this point have any questions about process or how we'll do this tonight?
Can I segue off that? I mean, when Doug mentioned the 2004 comprehensive plan, there are several things that we're doing as a board to update things. The comprehensive plan is currently being reviewed and updated to better meet what we have today around the community. Our committee bylaws, a lot of them are 2 to 10 years outdated, so we're trying to make sure that things that they're doing better meet our current atmosphere around town. So,
and I actually would invite some of the business folks that are here to refute the 2004 assertion that Rockport is business unfriendly, or to tell us that it is. But hopefully we'll hear some positive things as well.
Yeah, I'm Taylor Allen, along with Sam Temple on Rockport Marine. We've been in business here for over 50 years, and I have not found the town to be
Mark, could you...
Yeah, and don't stand in front of the camera.
You're not doing your job, and you're in front of the camera.
And you're in front of the camera.
Anyway,
You're all set.
All right, Taylor, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
well, maybe I won't say.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, in the 30 years I've been here, I think the town's been quite helpful and friendly towards us. We've been in front of zoning board and the planning board a few times, and you have to go through their procedures, but it's been pretty straightforward, and I thought fair. The road crew does a great job of keeping the hill where we are plowed and sanded during the course of the winter, so I haven't felt that at all about the town being unfriendly, at least not to our business. So
Perfect. Well, that's very good to hear. Anyone else have any feelings, comments up front?
I guess Taylor mentioned going through the planning board and the zoning board. If anybody else has had any experience doing that, we'd be glad to hear about your experience, and if it was good, bad, or indifferent, or how we can improve would be really helpful to us.
How
Hi,
many-
yeah, I'm Joe Ryan from Adventure Advertising. I'll echo what Taylor said. We've gone through the planning board process and have found Rockport has been very supportive of our business. We're a sign maker, so we work with a lot of other sign companies, a lot of other businesses in Rockport, and have worked with Scott, and find Rockport to be maybe easier to work with than most of the towns that we work with. So, yeah, I would repute what those findings were too.
Good. Well, apropos of what Mark said, I guess we'll update our comprehensive plan to say that Rockport is business friendly.
We haven't heard from everybody yet.
Right. We did something similar to this for non-tax-paying, tax,
Non-resident
non-resident taxpayers earlier in the summer. And things start off kind of slow because people are a little bit shy about taking the microphone and sharing their thoughts. But we do want you to feel comfortable, and I think things will get rolling here in a little while. How many of you folks actually live in Rockport? I know you own businesses in Rockport, but how many are residents? So I would say probably 2/3. Okay, that's good to know.
So, when we look at the primary functions of a town government, it's about emergency services, the public works portion, which is your sewer, water, roads, maintenance, and then obviously the schools are a big function of what tax dollars support. Doug has the numbers right off the top of his head, but 67% of every tax dollar that we collect goes to the school system. So I'm curious and want to know from your experiences with interactions with the Public Works Group and the Emergency Services Group, which are probably 90% of any interactions you may have, or be beneficiaries of the services they provide. Are there opportunities, or are things going well, not well?
Thank you. I'm Jan Abendroth. I own Rockport Automotive. Rockport's my hometown. I grew up here. My business is here. I guess clarification as to who is responsible for the roads on Route 1. I have a culvert issue right in my entryway that continues to implode every year. And when I contact the town of Rockport, they tell me that it's DOT.
Yeah.
And DOT comes out and they just do a shoddy job. And every year I still have the same culvert issue. And it causes water problems further down the line towards Fusion Audio Video. So that's really my only complaint. Or just some clarification to find out, how do we get this culvert
it is
fixed once and for all?
Route 1 is DOT. We can, Mike is pretty good at expediting it and getting it worked on. He has a good relationship with the local DOT people, but there are times that even for work that we need them to do, that their budgets are just so strictly monitored that you can't get stuff done correctly because it's not within the local jurisdiction's control. So I do know about that culvert. We've had a bunch of problems there. And there are times that it would be much easier for us to just go in and fix it. And there are times, that's an expensive fix. There are times where we will, rather than being in a position of calling DOT and having to wait for them to do something, if it's a minor fix that we can do, we will do that. But in that case, it requires some significant work.
Well, DOT came in last year and they just put extra pavement, which was nice, but
Right.
it just washed out. And now it's creating a safety issue for customers and people trying to pull out of my shop onto Route 1, making a left-hand turn.
Yeah.
Jan, for yourself and everybody else, the person that Rick refers to, Mike, is the Public Works Director for the town of Rockport.
Yeah, I think you know Mike, right? Yeah.
And I would suggest just as a general thing, that should probably be your first point of contact anyway, because as Rick says, he does have relationships with the state DOT, and it's a lot easier probably for him to do that than it is for you to try to navigate their organizational
And we can help
structure.
do that.
So even if you are on a state highway where the state is responsible for the road, I would, unless Rick tells me that this is
No.
a bad idea, I would suggest that you contact our Public Works Director, Mike, first, and he can, and I think Bill was still with
I just
Napower.
wanted to say with problems with MDOT
Mark.
like that,
You need to come,
Yeah,
with problems with MDOT like that, they'll come out and do simple maintenance. But if it's anything that goes beyond that, it's got to get into their work plan. So that's a strategy the town can use, is advocate. The work plan is adjusted every year, and it's a 3-year plan. And you have to get them to put it on that, into that process. Otherwise, a reoccurring problem just doesn't get addressed at all. So there is a way of dealing with them, with their system to get something done.
I'll take this opportunity here to put in a plug for a new program that the town has really just instituted within the past month or so. It's called Report It, Fix It. And what it is it's an app for the computer or your cell phone, whereby in the town of Rockport, you can go in, and if you see a problem with a pothole, a sign that's down, a bad culvert on a town road, anything like that, you can go in and on a little map, put down a pin, and then identify what the sort of problem is. And then this goes directly to the pretty much to the Public Works Department. That's what most of these issues are. And then they can prioritize, well, first of all, they're made aware of the problem by our citizens, and then they can prioritize these little jobs around town. And it's a great service. You can go and find it on the town website. It's right on the front page. And then once you find it, you can put it onto your phone. I have it right on my home page. So if you're driving around town again and you see a problem, it's very easy to, in 10
it's easier on your
seconds-
phone.
Yeah, it
It's
is
easier on your phone.
You can, 10 seconds, you can literally put the report in, it'll go to Public Works, they'll receive it and hopefully be able to take care of it in a timely fashion. And one nice thing about it is that it makes really all of us stewards of our own community. We all have to take part, and, if you see a problem, report it, if then it can get fixed. So that's my plug for it. It's called Report It, Fix It, and you can find it quickly on the first time on the town website, and then put it on your phone. I think you'll like it.
Maybe Deb should talk about broadband, what do you think?
Yeah. Deb, you want to?
That's- Sure. One of the initiatives that that some of us are working on, and we, there's not been any select board approval or anything of this yet. We're sort of in the investigative stage. Is broadband. You may recall that a few years ago. What was it, Rick? Like 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think the vote was 4, I think. Yeah.
Okay, but the actual broadband that went into the town.
Oh, yeah, that was
sorry.
5 years ago.
So about 5 years ago, the town had a partnership with University of Maine and
GWI and.
GWI to bring broadband to about 1.5 miles in the downtown part of of Rockport, as well as municipal offices. And the intent of the select board at one point was to extend that broadband capability throughout the town, or throughout all of Rockport. And then there was a vote that was defeated that was actually probably a good thing, because it was the expenditure of several $100,000 to do a study, which in hindsight, things have changed and gotten cheaper and could have been done differently and less expensively. So it's not a bad thing that that happened. But that vote was 4 years ago. But as you know, as we know, we continue to rely on the internet more and more all the time. We need to keep young people here. We need to make sure that our businesses thrive, that we need to, a lot of people work from home. We need to, some of us feel that is important to making economic development a reality here. So anyway, there are some towns that are doing some very creative things, like Calais and Baileyville have formed what's called a regional utility district. And without raising taxes, they have been able to get long-term municipal loans from banks and so forth to fund the infrastructure for doing broadband throughout their communities. And then it also allows other communities to jump on board on the effort as well. And it's done on a regional basis. Typically, obviously a regional utility district is done on a regional basis to try to improve the economic development conditions within the region. That said, I guess one of the things that we would like to explore with you is if you think as business owners and the types of businesses that you're in that that better internet speed is something that hinders you or would help you if you had more connectivity, better connectivity, or just in your daily lives as residents. We're obviously interested in as well.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from businesses, perhaps some who already have broadband and others who don't, and folks who are here with home occupations, as Deb mentioned, that's something that would be of interest to us to hear. So any comments on that topic, I think would be terrific for us to hear and help in the guidance of this at the early stages. Right there.
Yeah.
Mark.
Mr. Microphone Man.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
for
for
the
the live
people at home.
Yeah, we can hear you.
It's for the live stream, so people listening at home can hear your question.
That's fine.
comment.
I am Debbie Parker, and my company is Future Vision Youth Development, and I'm on the corner of 90 and 17, and I'm a nonprofit, 501c3. I have a program that will resolve many issues in illiteracy, and I have taken this in front of the local school district, and they are not receptive to that at the moment, or for the past 12 years. The reason I had spoken to Rick, Mr. Bates, a couple years ago, and I explained that this program will reduce town costs in education. The program itself, once we run it with a survey to identify the children that need this help, I plan to have as a national program. And if we have broadband, that would help with data collection and a whole bunch of other things that we could look to probably employ more people in the area to do some of this work. Currently, this program, I don't know if you're all aware of the problem with the for-profit universities in this nation. I got stuck in there because the research on this program is sitting right now on Secretary DeVos's desk. And it's also in the Minnesota Office of Higher Learning's desk. But been to local superintendents to try to have them look at this, and I'm not getting any reception. I went to Rick a couple years ago and mentioned that, and at that point he said we weren't interested in looking at this. So I think if the broadband came in, that was the original question, it would definitely help what my plans are to broaden this information so that I can get this out to people that are interested in having their town costs reduced with schools. because this will definitely impact budgets in a very positive sense. And I presented this to the governor also, and in 2015, he said yes, and then it died on his desk. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention because this is still available, and I would like some interest to be at least looked at, and if not tested. It's a 15-minute survey that can show the town how effective a 15-minute program, it takes 12 weeks to run this. And the kids that I ran this in Palm Beach County Schools in 1996. They went from Fs to As in 16 weeks. And that's for 17 to 20% of the student population, because those are the kids that are suffering with issues in functional eye vision. This is all a whole new field, and I don't want to really kill this meeting with going on about it, but I certainly would like an opportunity to sit and talk to all of you about the benefits this can have for this our town, on town budgets and school budgets, and where we could go with this. But yes, the broadband's certainly going to help me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? One question that comes up, in the state of Maine suffers from, and I don't know the statistic anymore, if it's how accurate it is, but at one point it was only 40% of businesses in Maine have a web presence, which makes it kind of challenging for, communities to really look at, is broadband something that you really want to promote? Just for the people in the audience, how many of you that have businesses here have some kind of web presence, either, does anybody not have a web presence? So it's only a very small percentage. So, yeah, that.
Want to know why?
Yeah, actually, good.
Because I don't need one. I'm Ingrid Van Steenberg, and I have Van Steenberg Associates accounting firm on Route 1 across from the Rockport Center. And I couldn't get the staff I need to handle the additional work that I might get through a web presence. Why should I advertise if I can't take on more work, and I can't take on more work until I can find skilled people to do the work? And by the way, I have found that since 2004, with the change of the town manager, that Rockport is much more business friendly now.
Thank you.
Jan Abendroth from Rockport Automotive. Again, our business is changing incredibly, and broadband would certainly benefit my business. I've taken and put computers now at all of my technicians' stations. They take pictures. Customers want they want to know instantly what's going on with their vehicles, so being able to text and email, and customers making appointments online, that's the wave of the future. That's the wave of what customers want, and that would absolutely help productivity in my business, where with Spectrum, Time Warner now, and with when we're running full tilt, it's a lot, and it's a lot on the system, and it runs a little bit slower in the summertime, which we need it to run a little faster. So that would be awesome.
You could probably teach a class on web presence for local businesses, because your web presence is pretty effective. You show up on Facebook a lot with stuff that your company offers, all the specials that you offer. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how Facebook works enough, but you do show up a lot on Facebook with your web presence.
And Rick, can I ask you, because you're more into the broadband stuff than I am perhaps, but their business is on Route 1. The three-ring binder goes down
Goes
Route
right
1.
there.
So would they have access to broadband, or is it so?
Yeah, I mean, they have it now if they're in Spectrum, but they could connect in to the three-ring binder and get.
You want to explain what that is?
The
for-
three-ring binder is a network that was paid for back, I think 10 or 12 years ago, with the Community Reinvestment Act, is that correct, Bill? No, no. From, so they basically built, you know, if we think about the, you know, the internet is much like the highway system. And so they built the superhighway, it is the three-ring binder, and it connects 3 areas of the state into this superhighway, like 95, gives you a connection to 95, and that gets you down to New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Boston, New York. And you can get on the highway. Once you're on the highway, you can travel any place. And the road analysis works really well because, you know, then what we're trying to do is make more connections onto the highway. And you know, we're lucky in Rockport, the three-ring binder runs right through the middle of Rockport. So, and it's right outside my office, so that's why we were able to make the connection so easily. So all the businesses that are on Route 1, they have access to the three-ring binder. And, you know, going through GWI or some of the other providers that use that service, you can get that really good connectivity. When you get off of Route 1, you know, then that's the problem, because now you're basically going from Route 1 to potentially a, you know, secondary road and a dirt road to get internet access. And the goal is to connect, you know, as many people to the three-ring binder through some sort of a network. Because then, if you're in business, the 2 things to remember about the internet is upload and download speed. And you know, the download speed is what you get with Spectrum or any provider. They pay attention to the download speed, and they'll push out download speed, and that's what they advertise, the high speed of download. That's us as consumers. And it's saying, so that we can consume stuff, we're paying money out to consume a product that somebody else is producing. Upload speed is what you need in business so that you can take your product and make sure that it gets to market as fast as possible. So when you have an upload speed that's really low, and you're trying to get your product out to market, and if you've got big documents and you're trying to get it out, it's hard and it may take forever to do it. I'm going to use Taylor as an example. If you were trying to send a drawing, a pretty detailed drawing of a boat you were building to someplace else in the world, and trying to upload a drawing that had a lot of detail in it and was a big file, it may take minutes and hours for that to happen. And you have somebody across the country or in another part of the world is waiting for that document so that they can do some work on it. And in that process, if there's a glitch in the system in that time period, you may end up having to start over again, or they don't realize that they don't have all of the information. So the idea is with the three-ring binder, it gets you onto that network as quickly as possible, and then that information travels at the speed of light to your destination. And that's what Maine's problem is we don't have that, we only have that three-ring binder superhighway. We're trying to expand it, but it has slowed development down in Maine.
And so on Route 1, as Rick says, you have their three-ring binder going right by you. So that's a fiber connection,
have it.
which literally is
You have it,
many,
yeah.
many times faster. I mean, just exponentially faster than what you're experiencing right now, and way cheaper than, I guarantee, than what you're paying right now. I'll talk, I can talk to you after.
There are a couple of providers.
I'll tell you about the
that-
providers,
that,
yeah.
Make it available now, and you probably have more information on that.
Yes.
Would that be on 90 also?
No, it doesn't.
It's on Route 1, which, that's what the broadband effort is about, is to extend it to the rest of the town, make sure people know, you know, to take advantage of what's there on Route 1, but to expand it to the rest of the town, not just businesses, but homes. And, sorry, I'm gonna say one last thing before, and that is telehealth, for example, you know. going to doctor's offices, waiting forever for a doctor, et cetera, et cetera. Our healthcare system is ready to deliver telehealth to patients, the thing that stops it from happening. So you can talk to a doctor at home. You don't have to get in your car in the dead of winter and go to a doctor's office. You can be monitored at home. I mean, not just, the kind, there's some monitoring I know that goes on now that sends, your vitals and so forth to a doctor's office if you have that capability. But there's a lot. There is so much that can be done in telehealth now. The problem is that the medical facilities are ready to deliver it. It's that the patients, the residents, don't have the ability to receive it and interact. Sorry.
I'm Joe Ryan from Adventure Advertising. I know I said earlier that we make signs, but we also build websites. We host about 65 websites. We are on the 3-ring binder system, and we could not do this work without that available to us. We have clients all over the country that we do work with where we're working live, and they're watching us on screen from wherever they are. So the service is essential to our type of business, and I don't think the question should be, do we need it? I think the question should be, how are we going to get it for every business and when? And are we going to invent our own wheel, or are we going to tap into a statewide resource? Because every community is talking about the same thing. And for every community to invent their own wheel seems to be counterproductive to what we're trying to do. So I think the question should be more coming from us to you as to, what are we doing? What's the plan? And how are we going to get it out to businesses on Route 17 and Route 90 and not just in the village and along Route 1?
And I think that's what you're doing as far as the research is right now. And to give a little history with this, I mean, when we first got the small broadband network that we have in town now, it was a happenstance of really, the Media College really needed it for their work, and we had, everything sort of fell into the right place, and at that time there was a push to say, let's spread it all out through town. We had the vote on the study, which would have been a detailed engineering study and made it basically a shovel-ready project if we had
Right.
done that. But, and I said the other night, I supported that at the time, but in some ways I'm glad that it didn't go through, because as Deb said, there's a lot of new ways to do this now. And one of the things that the board at the time insisted on, and I would continue to insist on that, is that it be made available to the whole town, so that we can find folks who maybe want to do a home occupation and live up on Mount Pleasant Street or someplace that's not on 117 or 90, and they can still get it. And maybe that attracts more young people to the area and solves Ingrid's problem, and she now has people who can work for her. Amen. It's interesting, and one of the issues that we have around here is, I don't know about you folks, but at my house, I cannot get any television signals from an antenna. The only way you can get television is by satellite or cable. But if you have broadband, there's a lot of new services out there now, and so some of this service, if there's a cost to broadband, you can say, well, okay, I can get the broadband, but I can dump my television provider, and I can continue to use to get what I want to watch on television. So there's a lot of services, I think, that could be delivered this way that we've been used to getting a different way for many, many years, and so it will be transformative, I think, when we finally get it everywhere.
Deborah, is there an actual group that's working on this? Do we have an economic development committee, or?
Well, as you know, we're putting together an economic development committee. Just, we've talked about it and tried to identify people this summer. But really, it's not so much an economic development committee that I think that we need working on this, but we need a working group of select board members, town managers, people who will help us throughout the towns that we're talking about doing it. For example, we have had meetings with some bankers who have advised us that the local banks are ready and willing and anxious to loan us money to do this. And I mean, we're talking about municipal long-term 20-year loans.
Can I, Deborah, if you would, it's not we as a board, but
Right.
No.
individuals. I just don't want people to think that they've missed meetings.
No. I'm saying that, sorry, I'm saying that Rick and I have been working on this, and the reason we have been working on it is to get a sense of, are the other communities interested? What do we need to get those communities interested? Also, are our own residents interested? And we have had preliminary discussions with some local banks just to get a feel for whether or not a kind of callous Baileyville sort of approach of a regional utility district is something that could be an option for this and other select boards to consider when the time is right. And so we're in this investigative phase to do that. We have had conference calls with the woman who runs Down East Broadband, which is the regional utility district that Calais and Baileyville put together. And we have the documentation and the process that they have gone through, and recommendations from her, and she is happy to come down here and meet with the select boards. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing behind the scenes, and the point is to get our thoughts together, information together in that regard, to then, for us, Rick and me, to then bring that back to this select board, and as I said, other select boards, to see if they want to band together in an effort to pursue this. But we also know that key to it is something that will not raise our taxes. We know that we have issues with respect to schools and so forth that we're paying for. So it needs to be through other creative financing mechanisms, which is why we're trying to make sure we have ducks in a row before we start making decisions.
As Deb had said, there's been a lot of changes in the environment, the broadband environment in the past, since we started. I mean, for those of you who were around and noticed, when we did our 1.5 mile stretch here, it was the first one in the state that was a municipally owned broadband network. We made the investment. We got national recognition because it was, what we were doing was so unique. It was a dark fiber network that allowed any provider to use it. And the analogy I always made is, we want to own the road. We don't want to own the trucking company. We're not in the business of trucking, but we're good at building roads, and we can own and maintain roads, and we could do the same thing. We own towns own water systems, sewer systems, some own public electricity, so we can do that. But the technology of providing internet service is, some cities do it, but it's not in our wheelhouse to do that. But building the infrastructure, we are capable of that. So a lot has changed in the 4 years, and we learned from, I think we learned from our mistakes, and we've also learned from the people who have been successful, Baileyville, and I just sent you another one, Georgetown. There were 3 towns that have gotten together, and they're starting to do something. And one of the challenges for us as we started looking at it was, we don't have enough rooftops to provide the service to have it, to make the business model really work well. So using a regional approach, I mean, we do a lot with Camden already. We're already working really hard with Camden in some cooperative efforts in assessing and police and recreation, and we have a bunch of things we do together, and the Camden demographics and our demographics are very similar, and Camden is a perfect opportunity to gain the rooftops, to build a network that makes sense for us to provide good quality, inexpensive service to residents. And the business people are the ones that typically recognize it first, that the need for it, as Joe said. I mean, if you're trying to send a drawing or something out, and you're trying to send it across country, if you can't get 100 meg service or something, you're you're sitting there waiting as the wheels on the bus go round and round, waiting for it to go. And then if something happens, you gotta start over again. And for you, you know, it allows every business that has that national, that could have that national presence, to have that national presence. But it's an investment. You know, it's investment in our effort, an investment in from you guys making taking the interest, but it's the business people that see the need first, and then the other piece that we're hearing from is the people that want to make sure that they can stream all the TV shows. That's not going to drive our economic development. It's business people like you that drive the economy of the region.
But it's faster, better, cheaper. So we don't want to talk about broadband all night, but it's faster, better, cheaper. You actually get faster, better, cheaper service, and I was able to do that myself. So I am a case study in it.
Are there any other thoughts or suggestions from folks in the audience about what we as a town could do to help your businesses, help you be successful? People aren't jumping all over it. They're not. We're here from the government.
Yeah.
We're here to help you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Sam Temple, Rockport
Yeah,
Marine. I've recently, been hiring a number of, great young people. It's been pretty good finding labor. But one thing I noticed is none of them live in Rockport. They're moving to Rockland. They're moving to Northport. They're moving, places it's easy to find a cheaper rent. And I haven't looked at the comprehensive plan recently. I wonder what's in there, what the town's thoughts are on providing, relatively low-cost housing.
Well, it's certainly something that's on people's radar screens now, and it comes up, frequently at discussions when we talk about the business climate. It does seem to be a problem. I know Taylor has also taken a very big interest in workforce housing, as had Stu Smith. I don't have any particular updates on any of that,
No.
but it's recognized as an issue. No question about it.
I would wonder if, affordable or low-cost housing, it may be that they're going there because it's available. It's a struggle to find any housing, whether it be high cost or low cost, but any housing that you can rent is a challenge around here. So they're probably paying pretty well, pretty high rental rates for wherever they're going. Stacy Coomer, who used to be the chamber director, one of the things she said that I loved this was, we don't care where you come, in which town you come to, as long as you come. And for the Mid-Coast region, it's a better approach for all of us, for your businesses as well, as getting people to come into the Mid-Coast. They don't have to come specifically to Rockport. They can go to other, Camden, Lincolnville, Hope. They're all good communities. But as long as they come to Mid-Coast to live here, raise a family, and support business, we don't really care if they go to another community, but it's important that we as a community provide that kind of, some kind of housing that makes it so that they can stay here.
One of the things that we've done over the last year or so, and the land use ordinance and an ordinance review committee has worked on density requirements, and that is hopefully helping to move to a situation where in certain parts of town, for example, if there is sewer service, we can allow more multi-unit housing and things of that nature. And we still continue to work on that as we go forward, and that's one way to address it. It's hard economically to tell a builder, well, you have to build, low-cost housing in this part of town or something like that, because they can get a lot higher return on their building if they, sell it to somebody with a higher cost or something like that. But by working with the land use ordinance, we can hopefully promote that sort of development in areas where it makes sense, where we want to have the higher density, for example, a building with, 3 or 4 apartments in it or something like that, where the square footage isn't as much, and that hopefully would be something that'd be more affordable for a worker to live in.
I just wanted to say something. I've been doing some scouting to try to see if I could find some local sponsors to assist me. And during that search, I happened to stop at some of my neighbors, and they mentioned that they were trying to get some of their land developed, and that they needed some changes in planning and zoning. I think that just happened. Now, I don't know if I don't know if the changes have happened recently in planning and zoning over in 90 and 17 area. But anyway, to enhance the fact that this man had some property that he wanted to develop, and he said he had a lot of resistance in the town to doing that. So I don't know, I know the name, but I mean, maybe we're not as open to land development as we're talking about, and maybe we're not as open to low-cost housing as we're talking about. And I think that we need to broaden our view a little bit, because in the Free Press this week, Rockland and Lincoln County, Knox and Lincoln County are in the fastest development of all the counties in Maine. And if we want to get ahead of that, then we need to jump on this wagon and get this going so that we do have more available housing. I know for years I was looking for apartments for my kids, but they had to leave because they couldn't find jobs locally. They both went to one went to University of Maine Farmington, and the other went to University of Maine Augusta, and couldn't work here. So I think we need to get going. We have the land. We do have the land. We just have to develop it. And we have to be open to people coming in to develop it. And I know that I don't know what is going on with planning, because maybe Mr. Bickford knows more on that topic, but I know something's going on recently, because this gentleman that I was talking to said that he was going to talk to somebody in the town about getting some areas, and he had acres he wanted to develop.
One of the, if I might, one of the challenges with that is you can have a lot of land, but the way you get density is by, if it has water and sewer, then you can get smaller house lots and smaller lot sizes, and then the town has the option of saying to a builder, if you're building, and Bill chime in on this, but just say to a builder, there's an incentive with extra density if it's going to be workforce-style housing or some other density bonuses that you can give. But the key is water and sewer, so then you can get smaller lot sizes, and housing for everyone is important. And not everybody wants to live on those small house lots, but a lot of people will and do. And it's challenging, but you can't just carve out a piece of land that doesn't have water and sewer and say we're going to go on 100 by 100 house lots, because you can't get a septic tank in and a well on the lot.
Yeah, if I could say something about the land use ordinance, and then maybe Bill will chime in as well. The land use ordinance in Rockport has been around for many years now, and it's been developed over a long period of time, and it's an organic document. It continues to change from time to time, and some of that change comes from, as you mentioned, folks come in and saying, gee, I got this piece of land here, I'd like to do X with it. Well, it has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and when the Ordinance Review Committee looks at these things, and I've been sitting on that committee for 6.5 years now, we really can't look at it with only one particular situation in mind. We have to look at, well, this person is suggesting that perhaps we might change the zoning. Well, how does that affect things for the whole zone? Because as we look around the town, for example, in a residential area, you don't want to have a residential street with a bunch of houses in it and then a gas station plopped in the middle of it. That's the reason we have a land use ordinance in the first place. We want our commercial areas to be in certain areas. We want our residential areas, our rural areas, and things like that. But the process does work. It's not instant. If somebody comes in with a request, they may come to the planning office and float that request, and if our planning consultant thinks it's worthwhile, he'll bring it to the select board, and then it goes through a process with the ordinance review committee, and then it has to be approved by the voters at the polls. So it's not something that can happen overnight. It takes a little while to do it, and I'd invite Bill to correct me in anything I said that was wrong.
There was a recent change that was approved this past June that did increase the density in certain areas to allow more units per acre. But it was dependent on having, municipal sewer, which is an essential element, as Rick said, to allow that, that density to occur and not rely on a subsurface system. Most of our rural areas, are not served by municipal water or sewer. And they also have a larger minimum lot size, significantly larger than other parts of town, so.
Well, I would just like to applaud the town of Rockport for its forethinking in consolidating services with the town of Camden. I think that it is fiscally responsible for the town and for the citizens. It'll help keep our tax base, our taxes lower. I think that Camden has a beautiful library. I think that Rockland has a beautiful library, and I don't think that Rockport needs to be spending that kind of money for a library when we have these wonderful facilities that are so close to us. But I thank the town of Rockport for what you are doing to try to help keep the tax base down, because that'll help all of us, businesses as well as residents, and for people who want to move here. So thank you.
The cork's coming out of the bottle, so get ready.
Okay, I'll take a minute here just to talk about another project that's kind of in the exploratory phase in the town here, and it does involve some land use. I think everybody in town's familiar with the old RES site there at the corner of Route 90 and Route 1, and people frequently refer to that as the gateway to Rockport, for one better or worse. But at any rate, again, people that are familiar with this know that probably for about 10 years or so, there have been a lot of town committees, groups, consultants who have looked at that piece of property and put forward various recommendations and thoughts and observations and plans. And that's all been pretty inactive for the last couple of years. But recently, the town, sort of at my encouragement, has put together a work group, and it consists of myself and Deborah as select people. Rick is the town manager, Bill Napower is the town planner or consulting planner, and then two entrepreneurs in town, John Morris and Bettina Dolton, and Hannah Sisk, who works in the planning office. And a lot of work was done to review the work that's been done in the past. And after looking over 10 years' worth of research, the group sort of came up with 4 principles that we think can guide us in moving forward to decide how best to use that site. And so I'm just going to read these 4 principles to you. Number 1, the development of the property must result in a significant contribution to Rockport's tax base. Again, these aren't our thoughts. These are a compilation of focus groups going back many years. Number 2, the project should be aesthetically pleasing and attractive as it welcomes residents and tourists alike to the central portion of our town, particularly if they are arriving via the important Route 90 corridor. Number 3, green space must be maintained, incorporated, and nurtured into the project so that it is accessible for all residents to enjoy. Number 4 was that the town must be an active partner in the development of the property so that decisions are not simply ones of dollars and cents, but they represent the shared values of all of our town citizens and the visions that we have for the town. So to date, many of the ideas that were circulating around this site seem to support the idea that the highest and best use for that property is a mixed-use combination of professional retail space with some residential units, as well as maintaining the significant green space that's already there. So, this group has come up with these basic principles, and we've only had 2 meetings or something, but I think going forward, we're going to start to look at, how we can perhaps bring those 4 principles into a reality to do something that helps the town with the taxes, but that's very pleasing and really represents who we as a town think we are when people come to visit. So that'll be an ongoing project you can stay tuned to.
I'd just like to add something. I've got some plans. I've been working with Rockport Library, thank you, for years now. And the staff in there is very helpful and very open-minded and willing to listen and get me what I need. And a lot of times I'm asking for additional supplies and
Is this the
resources.
planning office?
This is at Rockport, is with Ben.
The library.
The library.
Oh,
I'm
the
sorry.
library,
I'm
okay,
sorry,
yeah,
library.
sorry, yeah.
And I have a lot of plans for that library, so I'm really looking forward to this. And I go in there and talk with them about it all the time, because we need a certain, for my program, our program, in this Future Visions, we need additional work in the adolescent and kids books, because in order to meet the goals of reading equality, I have to integrate certain things into the schools, which is a transitioning from what we do to them being able to read fully. And it's a 2-week transition. This requires special books, special prints, special short story type of ideas. And although it seems like something I should be easily able to get, there are no resources in the state of Maine for what I need. So Ben has been working at least open-mindedly. He said he really isn't in a position to do anything about it yet. But I've got a plan, so I'm very excited about the new library. That's all I wanted to say. I'm looking forward to working with the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we've been here almost an hour. There's a question in the back.
Oh, sorry, it's not. I just wanted to get a chance to say, my name is Mike Cummins, and I work for Maine Water. I'm the superintendent for the Camden-Rockland Division. We're the public water supply and water utility for the town of Rockport. I do want to thank the select board for giving us the invite to be here. More than anything, we want to be part of the solution. And to Mr. Cole's point, the biggest way you can help us do that is if you see something or notice something, to give us a call. We have a good customer support team, but don't be afraid to say, I'd like to talk to Mike in Rockport, and they'll send you right to my phone. Like I said, we want to be part of the solution in any type of planning and answering any questions. We're a 24/7 service, so just give us a call.
Mike, thank you very much for coming.
Speaking of water, I have a question about Pascal Avenue.
Oh, I know what you're going to ask.
I know that it's just the way it is, and I have learned to navigate around the perpetual water event.
I knew you were going to ask about that.
Just curious, what's going on with that?
I hate to give this answer, but it's the only answer I have. Pascal, surprisingly, is a state road. Pascal is actually the old Route 1, and it's actually Pascal up Central Street and Union Street are state roads. We don't maintain them, we don't pave them, we plow them, the state pays us to plow them. We thought that they were gonna fix that this spring. I think it was this spring they did some work. And
Speaking of springs.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They were supposed to fix it this spring, and it might have been the previous spring, but it was supposed to get fixed. They came in and fixed it, and I don't know what happened, but they fixed the wrong end of the thing.
Well, just to be clear about this, because this is one of my pet peeves too, it is so annoying. What she's referring
Right.
to is that as Pascal Avenue approaches Route 1 there near the previous Hoboken Garden and where the construction was going on, there has been sort of a seasonal spring. I don't know if that's the correct expression for it, but when it's wet, this water actually comes up through the pavement. And then in the summer, it's not so bad. In the winter, it freezes and makes a mess. But I guess the thing that drove me crazy about this is that that spring was existent before they went and paved Pascal Avenue. So they just laid asphalt down on top of an area that they knew it was going to come up through, and the road is breaking up there already. And, talk about government and the Maine DOT, why they have a bad reputation. It's exactly that sort of thing.
And Mike did point it out to them before
Oh,
they
they
paved
knew,
it. Yeah, before they paved it, that they had worked on the wrong end. And the paving company came in on a scheduled time and paved right over,
Right over it.
right over it.
But thank you. Yes, we know it's a problem, and
I was just curious.
yeah.
Yeah.
Doing the best we can.
All right. Well, I'm glad everybody came. Are there any final comments people would like to make before we break off? Are there any unanswered questions? Greg?
Greg Haining. I'm just curious, is there an update on the Fuller Chevrolet building?
I don't know anything of,
Key location coming into town there.
I know it,
housing.
Yeah, maybe.
it's,
Well, someone had bought it.
right, it's been purchased. My understanding was it's purchased and the developer is planning on dividing it up into smaller, like office, retail space, but Bill's waving at me.
We've had some conversations with him, and they've just been exploratory. He has not come to any, a plan or a decision on what they want to use for the
Would you
property.
remind
So
us,
to answer
Bill-
your question, it's still in play.
Bill, would you remind us who him is? Do you know the name?
Oh, I forget his name.
He lives in Camden, correct?
Yes, yeah,
Yes,
he's
he's a Camden resident.
Yeah, it was for sale for years.
Oh, yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
I would love to see that get developed. I mean, I think it's 3+ acres, because it was a car dealership, so there's a lot of land there, and it would be nice to see it develop. For us, the challenge for us is our total valuation, is keeping our total valuation up. And the more people that we can bring in and the more tax base we bring in, the more the cost of doing business gets shared around, and you don't have to pay so much of it, so if we bring in more businesses and, and more jobs, it makes your life, it makes all of our lives easier, because we don't have to, we can lower the mill rate, or I'm gonna take that back. Mill rates very, very rarely go down. In my nearly 40 years in government, they rarely go down. The goal is to keep them from going up too fast, and the way you can do that is by, good positive economic development and more valuation, that more businesses, more housing that pays the tax bill. What hurt us pretty dramatically was when we did the revaluation, we lost $60 million in value, $60 million in valuation. And then the next year, the development at Brewster Point got consolidated, and that, we lost another $36 million in value the very next year. So we had those two big hits in loss of valuation, and that made our mill rate go up, without us doing anything. And that hurt us. The opposite has happened in Camden. When they did the revaluation, they gained a lot of value. So they were able to do a lot of more things and not have their mill rate go up substantially.
Are there any final thoughts from the select board?
Well, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank
Well,
you all
no-
for coming.
None here.
Well, and thank you all for the contribution that you folks make to the fabric of our community. You know, many of us know you folks from around town, and we appreciate what you do to help make Rockport, Rockport.
I do have something that you brought up with the other group, Doug. Is this useful? Would you like to see it once a year, never again? What do you guys think? I mean, because you can sort of spread the word through your other businesses, and we're happy, I think, to get together again. It's just a matter of whether you think it's worthwhile.
It's a chatty group.
Seeing some nods.
I have a suggestion.
Sure.
You're looking at, my name's George Abendroth. I would make a suggestion that when you finish the revision to the 2004 comprehensive plan, when that's almost finalized, that maybe this would be a good body
Oh.
to bounce it against,
That's a good
to
thought.
That- yeah.
get some buy-in.
To get,
Yep.
that's a,
The
thank you.
process of doing a comprehensive plan sort of requires us to reach out to many constituencies in town, not only businesses, but residents as well. And of course, that comprehensive plan will have to be approved by a townwide vote. So it's a process that'll take a while, and absolutely, we
And
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it
I
is.
do back in the corner, Doug. I know I've had conversations during the week about this meeting, and I want to make sure that our last to come has an opportunity to ask any questions that he might have. He promised he'd have some.
Well, I can speak with this, okay? Welcome, business owners. I'm Eric Lautzen. I'm sorry I was delayed. I had a planning board meeting in Rockland, so I own Danica Candles, my wife and I do, and I have no significant issues as far as my business is concerned with the town of Rockport, but I would like to see some attention, more attention given to that intersection of 17 and 90. It's, I have an employee that rather than go up to that intersection, will drive down to Meadow Street and take Meadow Street over to 17 to avoid it, because it's, you know, the traffic on 90 should have turn lanes, just the same as Route 17, or what would be very progressive would be to have a rotary there. There's rotaries in Augusta now by the new hospital, Maine General. There's 2 of them there. There's rotaries down in Bath now, and even Little Blue Hill has a rotary at where there are 2 major roads that cross. So, but in any case, I'd like to see some attention given to that. Maybe there's been a lot of attention, I don't know.
It's been talked about over the years, as Rick said, that's a state road, so.
Yeah,
it's-
But we've had some input with the state.
Right.
Because it is, you pointed out, it is, I think it, and Mark, you would know this, I think it's. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is it has the highest traffic accident count of any intersection in town, I think.
I believe,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
I
sure
believe
it
that.
does, yeah.
Yeah, I think we have
I see it
cam,
from my building quite often.
we have cameras installed there now on the fire department because there's so many accidents there trying to recreate it. The camera has been used a number of times to recreate accidents, you know, because they're there a lot.
Deadly on a bike.
Yeah, yep.
I'm up around that corner, I'm pushing it.
Just another little comment is that I've had some complaints of, you know, just tourists coming in who have used that picnic park down in Glen Cove. And so I went down there actually with my wife and some friends just to have a lunch. It's dilapidated. I mean, it's really not being taken care of. Things have grown up, there's poison ivy all over it, and I don't think the structures are very solid anymore. So anyway, that's just a little side.
Is that a park that you would use on a regular basis if it were in better shape?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I use it.
Oh, do you? Oh, interesting.
'Cause that's one of the things, we had it on our agenda last meeting to determine The history of that is it was a state property, and they
Right.
sold it to the town of Rockport for $1 a few years ago, and of course, that meant the town of Rockport
That was a mistake, maybe, to
had to
accept
take
it.
it over, and we're trying to determine whether the townspeople use it or not, because the deed does have a reverter clause in it. We could just say it to the state, we don't want it anymore, you can have it back. But we would, one of the things that we want to hear from is from people, do people use it or not, do they like it, and things like that. And if that's the case, then we could make budget decisions to invest in sprucing it up a
Well, it
bit.
used to be nice, at one
Well,
time.
part of the problem, of course, is there's unsavory activity that does go down there that our police departments and citizens are aware of, and we're trying to balance that all off, so.
Well, they're probably the only people that do go down there now, because it's not as nice a place to be anymore. And it's, trees and stuff have grown up to the point where you don't see the water in many spots there. you know, so. Yeah,
It's just the back end of it.
Yeah.
right.
The front end is usually.
Yeah, yeah.
And you
So
can close
we're-
off
we're-
part of it. I mean, you
We're
wouldn't have-
talking about all of these things, so, yes, we're aware of the issues down there.
Right. Good, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for coming.
Didn't you
Yeah.
have some comment in the first row? Did you guys, you had your hand up?
Did you have more comments?
Oh, I thought Kathleen did.
No, I just wanted to say one more thing. So the culvert issue on 9 and 17, I wasn't gonna talk about it, but, it's just backed up, it backs up all the time, so it goes over the property and down into Dr. Pier's lot in the back and makes it real spongy back there. So in order to get the culverts cleaned out, like the leaves and stuff, I would have to go call, who did you say to call?
Well, if it's town road, you just, the best thing, please, go to the report it, fix it on the webpage.
Okay.
And then you just click on the spot and report a culvert that's blocked and with leaves or whatever, and it automatically, it goes right to the Public Works Department. Another example is if you have a street light out, I mean, we've spent a lot of time on street lights. If you have a street light out, you can just, when you're driving by there, click on your phone, the street light's out, and that report, the way it's set up, is that report goes into Molly in our office, because she's handling those reports. And if, say it's a barking dog complaint, it will automatically go to the police department. So different types of complaints or concerns will go to the right department. Most of them are public works type things. But if you saw a boat that was on the harbor that looked like it was potentially sinking, or had a frayed pennant, you can report that, and it will go to the harbor master.
Straight to Taylor's office.
Right, straight to Taylor's office, right. So it's a great feature, so please try that. It's very easy, and it works, it's much easier on your phone than it is try to do it on your computer, because your phone automatically gives you the location. So if you're there, your phone.
Not my phone.
Oh, yeah.
1996 called, they want
It
your
has a
flip phone back.
dial on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that rotary dial's tough, that little tiny rotary dial. You use your finger?
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming.
Thanks for coming. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn, sorry.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor, votes
7:15?
unanimous,
Favor.
great.
Who made the motion? Ken?
No, Jeff.
This one,
I made the
Jeff.
motion.